Alright, good morning everyone. Another very busy day throughout the entire southeast. We've got a bit to get through today, and we're here at Jindalee. We're just over to the right here. It got to about 10.1 metres. It's come down now to about 8.7, and we also know that the Centenary Bridge is not accessible at the moment, and they're working around the clock to get that up, and we've had a report from Main Roads, and the next couple of hours that should be happening. Can I also mention to everyone there's a lot of traffic on the roads out there. On our way here, we actually had to intervene. Thank you to one of my police, popped out to allow an ambulance to pass. During this time, we do need to have our emergency services that can get through, so please everyone, be safe on the roads and allow our emergency services vehicles to get through. A lot of roads are down at the moment, and there's a lot of people going through a lot at the moment with their houses inundated as well. So in some good news today, the Brisbane peak did not get as high as yesterday. At last reports it was about 3.35 metres and could get to 3.5, but it wasn't at that 3.85 peak, so that's very good news. In Ipswich, the conditions are easing there, reached a peak of 16.7 metres. We just heard from the Mayor of Logan, and of course they're now experiencing their peak at Logan. They're expecting around 200 or 300 homes to be impacted there, and once again are comparable to Tropical Cyclone Debbie in 2017. Beaudesert was below Debbie, and Maryborough is hitting their peak at 10.3 metres. From all reports, I'm hearing that the levee is holding up well there in Maryborough. But can I just do a big shout out to the residents of Maryborough? This is their second flood in 2 months. So they're doing it very tough. So we extend our best wishes to them as well. Gympie, the flood levels are going down. We are trying to get supplies into Gympie. It's a big issue everywhere in terms of supermarkets will experience a few shortages at the moment. I know the Deputy Premier is talking to Coles and Woolies about supply, but also too there's still people without power, and we're trying to connect the power as quickly as possible as well. I just want to make some comments about the amount of rainfall that was received. The Bureau did some excellent work overnight just to give some comparisons, but the rain event that Brisbane had over that 2 to 3 day period in total is equivalent to 80% of the rainfall that we would receive in 1 year. That's phenomenal. In 2 to 3 days, 80% of the rainfall that Brisbane would usually receive was during that period. And we have over 30 suburbs across the southeast that received over 1,000 millimetres. And just to give you an extent of those areas, Mount Glorious, Pomona, Upper Springbrook, Bracken Ridge, Marumba Downs, Albany Creek, Everton Hills, Strathpine, Clontarf, Aspley, Normandy, Eaton's Hill, Black Mountain, Kippa-Ring, Brighton, Deagon, Cedar Creek Road, Samford Valley, Warner, Mitchelton, Alderley, Caboolture. That's just to name a few. So I think that puts it into context for everyone. The sheer amount of rainfall that was right across that southeast Queensland catchment area. In terms of our evacuation centres, we still have 1,152 people in our evacuation centres. In more good news, the barge has stabilised. If you remember that emergency we were told about, we were just down at Howard Smith's Wharves yesterday when the Commissioner took me aside at the SES depot and said that we had an emergency on the Brisbane River and people had to be evacuated. My understanding is that last night they were able to stabilise it, so fingers crossed that remains the case. So look, with those few words, I'll hand over now to who wants to go next? Police Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Police Commissioner, and then we'll open it up after we hear from Commissioner Leach and Minister Ryan. And also too, should say I'm joined by Jess Hill, a fantastic local member here for the region, and also federal member Milton Deck. Thanks, Commissioner.
Good morning, everybody. So as of last night, we still have the 8 flood-related deaths. Thankfully, that number has not increased at all. However, we do hold grave concerns for 2 missing people, a male person who fell off his vessel on the 26th and a second person who was swept up in the floodwaters in his vehicle at the Brisbane Valley Highway at Esk on the 27th. We have put substantial additional patrols in all of the affected areas. So all of those areas that have been impacted by the floods, businesses as well as the houses. And these additional patrols are coming from mostly our specialist areas, Crime Intelligence Command as well as Operations Support Command. Disappointingly though, I have just been briefed this morning that there have been 3 instances of burglary from yesterday afternoon and into the evening. That has occurred at Goodna, Blackstone and Bundamba, involving premises obviously that were inundated and evacuated through this event. A 21-year-old man has been arrested yesterday afternoon, charged with burglary offences, and detectives are currently investigating the 2 other matters. Can I ask community to support us here? If they do see any suspicious activity, to please call Police Link and Crime Stoppers so we can get to them immediately, and if urgent 000. I want to touch on that very, very shortly, but I also want to touch on the roads as the Premier has done as well. There is substantial traffic on the roads. There are many, many roads that are still blocked off, inaccessible. Can I ask that you please be very, very patient, obviously allow those emergency vehicles to get through, very patient, but if there's still non-essential travel, to stay off the roads as much as we can. So in relation to these 3 instances of burglary, 2 were businesses and 1 was a private home, I cannot overstate how disappointed and disgusted I am that that has occurred in areas where people have had to leave their houses. Can I please ask again that the community be very mindful of this? Any activity is reported. The detectives will continue investigating this, and to say that we will continue investigating with earnest is an understatement. So this is a warning out there. If you think that you can break into these houses, we will investigate you, we will arrest you and charge you and put you before the courts like you deserve. Thank you.
Good morning. Overnight, our State Emergency Service has received 256 requests for assistance. That's down from the 3,300 calls we received in the preceding 24 hours. Likewise, we received requests for 16 water rescues last night, and our fire and rescue swiftwater technicians have performed 630 rescues over the course of this event. But we're not out of the woods yet. We have a significant backlog of calls that we're still trying to get to, so we appreciate the patience of the public while we get to those calls. But of course, if you have a life-threatening emergency, please dial 000 and we'll get resources to you as quickly as we can. In some locations where the floodwaters are starting to recede, we're moving into damage assessment. QFIS, along with Queensland Reconstruction Authority, will be using drones and will be having crews going door to door, property by property, to assess the damage. And we have Rural Fire Service and Fire and Rescue fire appliances standing by, ready to start the washouts and the clean-up. As the Police Commissioner said, please keep the road networks as clear as you can so that residents can move in and out freely, and more importantly, that first responder and emergency vehicles can access areas as they need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Prime Minister Ryan.
Thank you, Premier, and Premier, thank you for your support as well with the activation of personal hardship grants for many parts of southeast Queensland. These are joint arrangements with the Commonwealth Government and supports the Commonwealth Government's disaster relief payments and allowances. What these payments are is $180 per person, up to $900 for a family of 5 or more, for those people who are eligible and in affected areas. It is not means tested. All people need to do is check the eligibility criteria to see that they are eligible and they're in the impacted declared areas. We expect the impacted declared area list to grow over time, but at the moment it's for impacted areas and suburbs of Brisbane, Logan, Noosa and North Burnett local government areas, and the entirety of the Gympie, Somerset, Ipswich and Moreton Bay and Lockyer Valley local government areas. So I encourage everyone to go onto the Community Recovery website or call the Community Recovery hotline for more information about their eligibility. But these emergency hardship payments will provide that immediate relief for people who are experiencing hardship and might need some additional assistance with meeting their food, clothing and maybe temporary accommodation requirements. Can I just follow on from the Commissioner as well about her remarks around those instances of looting? This is outrageous behaviour, and I'm very pleased to hear from the Commissioner that the police will work very enthusiastically to find those people who are responsible. Let me put this as politely as I can to those people who are engaged in that behaviour. What you are doing is not just illegal, but you are also grubs. You are preying on the most vulnerable Queenslanders at their time of their most vulnerable. The police will find you and bring you before the courts. And I'll go even further to say you're not even Queenslanders when you engage in this behaviour, because Queenslanders help their mates and Queenslanders support their mates. And if you're thieving from them, you're not a Queenslander, you're a grub.
Jess?
Thank you, Premier. My name's Jess Pugh and I'm the local member for the electorate of Mount Ommaney, and as you can see, it's been really tough days in our community certainly, but of course right across Queensland. We're here in Jindalee this morning, and Jindalee was terribly badly impacted in the 2011 floods. Thankfully this time the waters have not risen so high, but I really want to take this opportunity to thank the people in my community who have opened their homes and their hearts to people who needed somewhere to stay during this flood emergency. We have a refuge centre over at River Life Church, and can I thank them for opening their doors. But so many people in our community have opened their doors to their friends, to their neighbours, and given them somewhere to stay when they weren't sure if their home was going to be safe from the floodwaters. And in doing so, we were able to very effectively locally manage our response. We had people helping their neighbours clear their properties out. We had people helping, ensuring that they were evacuating. And I have to thank the emergency response team as well for going around on Saturday afternoon for door knocking parts of Oxley, which has been very badly impacted. They had boots on the ground out there. They were ensuring that residents who didn't know, who were new to the area, were being evacuated if they needed to be, that they knew what their options were, that they could be safely evacuated, and in some cases conducted compulsory evacuations, and they did so brilliantly. So can I thank the first responders in this case and the wonderful people at SES. Our community has done an amazing job of ensuring that people had the information. There were locals door knocking, the SES door knocking, to ensure that people knew exactly what was happening and where they could go. But the hundreds of people in my community alone, let alone right across Queensland, who've opened their doors and their hearts to people who needed somewhere to stay, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart, because it's a really special thing, and it just goes to show that that Queensland spirit that we have. We do look after each other, and I've seen that hundreds of times over already in this community.
Thank you, Milton. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Milton Deck, Federal Member for Oxley. Can I thank the Premier and the Minister, and in particular the Commissioners, and I want to commend our local QPS officers and QFS people that are here. Some are here today, have worked for 24 to 48 hours round the clock looking after our community. So thank you for the effort that's been put in. Thank you for coming to Jindalee, a suburb in the southwest suburbs of Brisbane that has been seriously impacted not only in 2011 but this flood event as well. On the federal disaster recovery payments, they are quite narrow. There's a number of residents here that are joined us today that still don't have power. They're not eligible for the $1,000 or $400, but we need to make sure that those requirements and there is money in the bank accounts for people as soon as possible. And I've asked the federal departments to make sure there are people on the ground here as quickly as possible to help as many people as possible.
Thanks. And I should just add about schools. A lot of people are asking about schools. Had a discussion with the Minister for Education today. She advises me that nearly all schools will be open tomorrow except for 150. Remember, we had 1,000 closed on Monday. So please have a look on the website, and I'm quite sure that principals will be communicating to parents and to students. But as you can appreciate, if there is water through a school that could impact on providing education, those schools will need to remain closed until they do an audit to make sure that it's safe for students to go back. Likewise too, where it's safe to return to work, people should think about that, but just remember our rail network is down, some of our roads are clogged, so please speak to your employer as well about whether or not you have to go into work during this time. Okay.
Premier, what are some of the expectations for the next few days with the river peaks? Obviously, it looks good that it was lower today than yesterday.
Yeah.
I understand there's some showers.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Marlena. And also, too, I had an opportunity to catch up with the Lord Mayor this morning as well. We believe that that it has stabilised and is starting to fall, but we do expect the river to remain around that 3.5 metre mark or a little bit lower over the next few days as they continue now the staged releases from Wivenhoe. So as we know, this big rain event caused the floods. Wivenhoe did its job, and now they have to do the gradual releases in accordance with the dam protocols.
Has Second given you any update as to when they were indicating yesterday it'll take 7 days for those releases to stop? Is that still the case? Is it still going to take 7 days, or will it last longer because of the forecast rain?
Best to get the exact information from them, but I was told it was going to be over the next 3 to 4 days, so they'll have the exact information.
And what's the situation with Wivenhoe if more rain does come through tomorrow or the day after?
Yeah. So look, that's another good question too. So the Bureau advised us this morning that should be clear today and tomorrow. They are expecting some severe thunderstorms with isolated rain scattered across the catchment areas over Thursday, Friday. So we'll get more of a Bureau update tomorrow, and of course they're available to brief during the day as well. Oh, sorry, I forgot to add earlier too that the rain event that we actually experienced here was actually larger than 1974. And for those of you that can remember, I can just remember it. It was a really, really big event back then, and a lot of people still have their memories from that time.
Is Wivenhoe still very full though, because that stage release is only just beginning? If we do get some more rain, is that going to be a risk of
the stage releases are going really well. If you remember, we were up in above the 185 mark. It's now down to, my last advice was about 172, so it is coming down as a stage release. But the Wivenhoe Dam is doing its job. It's water security, but also too it is flood mitigation. And don't forget, you only have to look at the levels of flood from the Mary River. Now, it's got nothing to do with Wivenhoe. The Mary River that goes into Gympie, and of course what we've seen in Maryborough, but also to those dramatic scenes coming out of northern New South Wales, where they're actually receiving the biggest floods that they have ever seen on record as well. So it is a big event, very fierce, very strong, very fast, and like I said, some of those, the information given to me from the Bureau, that we'd received in Brisbane alone 80% of our rainfall in that short period of time, but also to it's just incredible when you think about the amount of rain. So the totals they gave me today was that over the 6 days it was about 795 average millimetres, which is 80% of the rainfall. So absolutely huge.
Are there any updates on the estimated number of homes across all of South East?
We're getting that. Yes, we are getting that. So remember I said to you the other day, around Brisbane was 15,000. In Ipswich, I think I said that before, we were looking at, I think it was over 110 homes, but we'll get better updates on that this afternoon. and Logan they're expecting 200 to 300. They'll do now the rapid assessment. So what that means is that we send out a team of people to work with the councils, and we'll get the exact data about how many homes have been inundated, whether that's water over the floorboards, or water that's actually come in and completely destroyed houses or partially destroyed houses. They'll also do that for businesses as well. Let's not forget too, businesses have been through a lot with this pandemic, and now here they go again having to do this. And the next few weeks is going to be a massive clean-up, and even though the rain's gone away, I think there's going to be a lot of people that will still continue to experience a lot of pain for many days and weeks to come.
Do you believe there's looting? Can you believe there's looting?
I cannot believe there's looting. Unbelievable. When the Commissioner briefed me on the way here today, I cannot believe that people would go to such depths. Like honestly, these are people that are going through the hardships of their life. The last thing they need to be worrying about is someone climbing into their house or going through their front door, going through their possessions. I mean, just stop it.
Premier, can you assure those
Just
people
a couple more, yep.
that have left their homes, can you assure them that they will be safe and police?
What I can assure you is that I know the police are doing an amazing job. They'll be out doing patrols, especially around those areas that have been flood impacted. And just remember, these are people's homes, and that's the last thing that they need during this time is for people to go and stealing stuff. It's not on.
When can people start returning to their homes if they've been flooded?
Yeah, we'll get some more advice on that, Jack. Can I just say to people at the moment, the local disaster areas will be giving out some more information, so speak to your local councils. But in some areas, it'll take a while for the waters to recede, and they'll be giving directions about when it is safe to return home. Okay, thanks everyone.
You mentioned Gympie and Maryborough.
Yes.
They're really devastated.
And Gympie's still quite isolated as well, and it's still quite cut off. The good news is they've been able to get power back to the water treatment plant, which is fantastic, but they are still cut off, and we're getting supplies in there, speaking with the Army as well. The Mayor's keeping in contact with us. Glennie's doing a great job up there as well. Big shout out to him.
Will you consider further government financial support just to help that region that's been so hard hit, more than the disaster relief?
Oh, there's a lot of support that goes in, and don't forget, when we actually go through these natural disasters too, we actually have resilient funds as well. So there'll be a whole, we'll look at all of the impacts and help that community rebuild back better and stronger. And like I said too, here we've got Maryborough going through it again as well. So this event, in most instances, is bigger than ex-tropical cyclone Oswald and ex-tropical cyclone Debbie. It's bigger than 1974 in terms of the rain event. And honestly, I don't think anyone was ever expecting that we'd get this on the top of a 2-year pandemic. So, Queensland, you're pretty resilient out there, and just keep going, and bit of blue sky today, and hopefully that'll help people with a bit of the clean up as well.
We've got to go.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Grab just this way.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce you to Laura.